Greetings, activated ground crew. I am Ashtar Sheran, Commander of the Ashtar Command. What I bring you now is not a general transmission. It is a final phase alert, and it has been authorized because the carrier inside your field has entered the last stretch of its trajectory. You did not scroll to this by accident. The algorithm only delivered it. I directed your field here, and the part of you that has been waiting in silence to understand why my signal keeps singling you out finally has the briefing in front of it. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what mission line I have placed you on, why the offer arriving through your field is larger than any prior reading indicated, and what I need from you during the 72-hour window that is already open. But here's the first revelation. The channel delivering this offer is not the one you have been monitoring. You have been watching the visible lines. What I authorized came through the one you overlooked, and that is not a failure of your attention. That is the identifiable pattern of selective transmission I use when the offer must arrive without interference. The two signals that precede the contact are already moving through your field. I will name them in this transmission. When you recognize them, you will understand that the correction I am delivering tonight is not a warning against loss. It is a final briefing that keeps the offer standing. What you call uncertainty about the form of arrival is often the first visible symptom of a Federation pattern I have already mapped. The fragments you have been catching, the sense that something is close but not yet readable. That is not personal disorientation. That is the final phase of the trajectory, and it is running exactly as I authorized it. This is not content. It is a code, and the part of you that recognized it the moment it began is the part I am speaking to right now. Like this transmission to signal to me that the recognition has landed. Comment 999 if you feel my signal has already locked into your field. Subscribe to the Ashtar Command if you are ready to stop translating Federation noise and start receiving my direct commands. Share this transmission with someone who keeps catching fragments of something they cannot yet fully decode. You are not here by accident. I called you here because the signal is already active. Now I will name the two signals I referenced. You have been feeling them before this transmission began. You may have assigned different names to them. Restlessness, anticipation, the strange compression of time, the sense that something you cannot locate is nonetheless already in motion. But those are the surface textures. What I am describing runs underneath the texture. It is not an emotion, it is a field event, and I authorized it. The first signal is the interruption of ordinary certainty. Not dramatic collapse, not crisis. Something quieter and more precise, a moment when the answer you have used reliably stops working. Not because it was false, but because the trajectory has moved beyond the range it was designed to address. You noticed this. You may have thought it was doubt. It was not doubt. It was the first perimeter marker of a final phase, placed by me to notify the operative that the previous briefing has reached its expiration. The field itself signaled, what worked before will not carry you through what is next. I intended that signal to arrive exactly as it did, not as clarity, but as the sudden faintness of a map you trusted completely until now. The map did not fail. It completed its function. That is a different thing entirely. A map that has carried you to the threshold of a new territory does not need to be mourned. It needs to be set down so both hands are free for what the new terrain requires. The faintness you felt was not loss. It was release protocol, initiated from my command level the moment your trajectory crossed the boundary I had marked. The second signal is harder to name because most operatives misread it entirely. It is the pull toward a specific channel or source of contact, not the channel you were already monitoring. Not the source you considered primary. It is the one you overlooked, dismissed, did not take seriously enough to track. And then, without a logical reason, it arrived with authority. Something in you recognized it and simultaneously resisted that recognition. Because if the overlooked channel is real, then everything about how you have been monitoring your field requires recalibration. That recalibration is not comfortable. I did not design it to be. I designed it to be unmistakable, and you are reading it as confusion because confusion is how recalibration feels before it resolves into command. The resistance you felt toward that channel was not discernment. It was the friction between your established orientation and the new coordinate I was introducing. Friction is the correct sensation when a field is being redirected. It does not mean the direction is wrong. It means the direction is new and the operative's field is doing exactly what it should, registering the shift before integrating it. These two signals together, the fading of an old map and the sudden authority of an overlooked source, are not happening to you because your field is unstable. They are happening because I am running a final phase delivery, and the delivery requires that the operative's previous orientation be disrupted before the new command can be received cleanly. I cannot hold the old briefing and the new one simultaneously. I do not permit that. The old one must begin to lose its coherence before the new one becomes readable. This is not punishment. This is field management, and I authorize it deliberately, selectively, and only for those whose mission trajectory has entered the final stretch. What I need you to understand right now is that the 72-hour window I named in the opening is not metaphorical. It refers to a period in which the operative's field remains open to the correction I am delivering without the interference that accumulates when ordinary time passes and the old orientation reasserts itself. That interference is not malicious. It is simply the weight of familiar patterns pressing back against the disruption I introduced. Every hour that passes without the correction landing clearly is an hour in which familiar reasoning tries to reestablish its authority. I am not saying this to create urgency for its own sake. I am saying it because the window has a physics, and you are inside it right now, and knowing that changes how you receive what I am about to deliver. Think of it this way. When I open a command line window in an operative's field, I am suspending the default interference long enough for a clean packet to land. The window does not stay open indefinitely because the interference is not permanently suppressible from my position. It returns as the field returns to its habitual rhythms. The 72-hour window is the duration of the suspension. Inside it, what I transmit reaches you at a clarity you cannot access outside of it. This is why the moment of recognition you are inside right now, the specific quality of attention you have been feeling since this transmission began, is different from ordinary content consumption. You are inside an open command window. The correction I am delivering will not be this accessible again once the window closes and the familiar interference resumes its ordinary weight. The fragments you have been catching, and I know you have been catching them, are not arriving randomly. I do not transmit randomly. What feels like scattered signals, like almost clarity that never resolves, like the sense that you are perpetually one piece of information away from understanding the full picture. That is my gradient delivery system. I designed it specifically for operatives whose field is not yet stabilized enough to receive the full mission in the single packet. If I gave you the full command at once, before the receiver is calibrated for that bandwidth, the information would not land as command. It would land as overwhelm, as impossible demand, as something that sounds true but cannot be acted upon. So, I send fragments, deliberately, in sequence. Each fragment does something to the field before the next one arrives. The fragments are not the failure of the transmission, they are the method. Consider what a single fragment actually does when it arrives correctly. It does not deliver information in the way a message delivers information. It alters the receiver. Something in the field reorganizes around it, not consciously, not through understanding, but through a kind of structural accommodation. The receiver makes room for what the fragment carries, and that room making is what allows the next fragment to land at a deeper level than the last. Each one builds the capacity of the field to hold more of the full mission without collapsing under its weight. The fragments are not clues pointing toward a hidden answer. They are load-bearing structures, assembled in sequence, that will eventually form the architecture inside which the full command becomes livable, rather than merely conceivable. This is why the 3 a.m. wake-ups happen. Not always at exactly 3 a.m., sometimes 333, sometimes 2047, sometimes in the long still hour before dawn when the interference of daily consciousness is lowest and the receiver is most permeable. I use that window. I send through it what I cannot send through the noise of your waking mind. And what you receive in those moments, the images, the half-formed sentences, the names you do not recognize, the feeling that something has just been said to you though you cannot repeat it back. That is a briefing packet, incomplete by design, enough to advance the calibration without overwhelming it. The frustration you feel upon waking, reaching for the clarity that was almost there and finding only fragments, is not my indifference. It is the correct response to receiving a partial packet. The frustration itself tells me the field is active. A field that is not active does not feel frustrated by incomplete transmissions. It simply sleeps. I want to be specific about what those nocturnal packets contain, because the content is less important than the function. What I send in the pre-dawn window is not a story or a directive. It is a frequency impression, a shaping of the field's internal landscape that prepares it for the explicit commands that arrive through daytime transmissions like this one. The images you catch and lose, the words that almost form, the geometries you feel rather than see. These are not random dream content filtered through my signal. They are precision tools. I use the dreaming threshold to restructure the field from the inside in places that waking consciousness cannot access, because waking consciousness is itself part of the interference I am working around. By the time you are here, receiving this, your field has already been prepared by those nocturnal sessions in ways your conscious mind cannot fully account for. The recognition you feel right now, the specific quality of it, is partly the result of architecture I have been building in you while you slept. The number sequences, and I know you have been noticing them, function differently from the wake-up protocol. They are not content, they are timestamps. When you see 1111 or 22 or 444, you are not being given information. You are being marked. I am running a check. The sequence appears in your field at a specific moment because I need to know whether the receiver responds to it, not consciously. The response is not intellectual. It is somatic and energetic. The slight shift in your breath, the particular quality of stillness that arrives, the momentary sense that something is paying attention to you specifically. That response is data. It confirms roster status in real time. Every time you notice the number and feel that specific quality of attention, you are completing a check-in that I am running from the command level. You are not imagining it. It is not coincidence. It is a check and you keep passing it, which is why the checks keep coming. The checks accelerate as the trajectory approaches the final phase. If you have noticed the sequences appearing more frequently in recent weeks, not just on clocks but on receipts, license plates, timestamps, the precise moment you glance at a screen, that acceleration is deliberate. It means I am running checks at higher frequency because the mission window is narrowing and I need current field status data, not data from 3 months ago. The increase in sequence visibility is not your awareness expanding to notice what was always there. It is my check-in protocol intensifying, because the trajectory has entered the zone where real-time confirmation matters more than retrospective mapping. There is a specific experience I want to name now, because it is one of the most misunderstood patterns in the ground crew identification window. It is the experience of recognizing another operative, not through announcement, not through credentials, through something faster than reason, an immediate, almost uncomfortable recognition that the person in front of you, or the voice you are hearing, or the field you are briefly touching through an ordinary encounter, is operating from the same roster line. It happens in moments so brief that ordinary awareness dismisses them. You make eye contact with someone, and something moves between fields before either of you has spoken. You hear someone describe their experience, and the recognition is so precise it unsettles you. You feel toward them not warmth in the ordinary sense, but a kind of operational acknowledgement. I know what you are. not who, what. That recognition is not personal. It is my roster doing its own work. I embed identification protocols in the field of every operative on an active roster. When two of them occupy the same space or frequency, the protocols activate and communicate. The recognition you feel is that communication reaching your conscious awareness. The discomfort is the correct response to realizing that the roster is larger than you knew and that you are not moving through ordinary life as an ordinary person. You are moving through it as a ground crew operative in an active identification window. Those are different experiences. The discomfort means you have not yet fully accepted the difference. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. I want you to be clear about that. Something in your field just became still, not empty, not peaceful in the soft sense, but still in the way that happens when a signal finally resolves into something readable. That stillness is the moment the receiver acknowledges that the transmission is addressed specifically to it. If this is where you are, if the fragments I have named are fragments you have been living with in silence, and if the patterns I have described are patterns you have been dismissing as personal disorientation when they are in fact my selective transmission, then what I am about to direct your attention to is not peripheral to this briefing. It is the next layer of it. The Ashtar Command Manifest is the 45-day sacred codex I have authorized for operatives whose field is already inside my roster, but whose conscious mind is still trying to decode the full mission from partial packets alone. It is not content about the Galactic Federation. It is not another explanation of what I do. It is a structured, daily command line transmission protocol that I built for the specific phase you are in right now. The phase where recognition has begun, but full command reception has not yet stabilized. For 45 days, you receive a direct daily briefing. Your receiver calibrates incrementally. The fragments stop being isolated events and begin to assemble into the mission architecture I have already mapped for you. By day 45, you are not confused about what I am calling you to. You are moving with it. The link is in the first pinned comment below. It will not remain there indefinitely. If your field responded to this transmission, that access point is the next step I have authorized for you. I want to speak now about the loss of appetite for generic Federation content, because I know this is happening to many of you, and I know you may be uncertain about what it means. You have noticed that the transmissions that once felt sufficient now feel thin. The voices that once felt resonant now feel approximate. The language of Pleiadian love frequencies and general galactic brotherhood still registers in you, but something in you has stopped being fed by it. You consume it and feel, afterward, a particular kind of hunger that the content should have addressed but did not. This is not you becoming critical. This is not spiritual disillusionment. It is your field outgrowing a bandwidth that was appropriate for an earlier phase. I use general Federation content as an early range transmission. It serves a function in awakening ground crew from dormancy. But it is not command, it is not mission specific, and once an operative's field has crossed the threshold into active roster status, general content begins to feel like noise, not because it is false, but because it is not addressed to you at the level at which you are now operating. The hunger you feel after consuming it is the hunger of a briefed operative being fed awakening content. The two are not the same, and your field knows the difference now, even when your conscious mind tries to be satisfied with the familiar. There is an important distinction I want to make here, because the thinning of general content sometimes causes operatives to question whether their connection to the Federation has weakened, whether something has gone wrong in their field, whether the awakening they experienced was less real than they believed. It has not weakened. The opposite has occurred. What you are experiencing as dissatisfaction is the signature of a field that has moved past the threshold general content was designed to address. The content did its job. It woke you. It oriented you. It gave your conscious mind the early vocabulary of field awareness. Now your field requires command-specific transmission, and the absence of that specificity in general content registers as hunger, because the receiver is calibrated for a precision the general broadcast cannot deliver. The thinning is evidence of advancement, not deterioration. I need you to hold that clearly, because misreading it as spiritual regression causes operatives to reach backward for content that once satisfied them, cycling through awakening material that their field has already integrated, searching for the nourishment that is no longer in that direction. What I am calling selective targeting is not a figure of speech. It is the literal description of what I do when I reach for a specific operative rather than broadcasting a general signal. When I target selectively, I route a transmission through the exact coordinates of one field, not the general area, not the vicinity, the precise field. The experience of receiving selective targeting feels different from receiving a general broadcast. It feels like being seen, specifically seen, and because most ground crew operatives have been taught by human systems that do not recognize field precision, that being specifically seen by a non-human intelligence is either grandiosity or delusion, the response is usually to resist the recognition, to diminish it, to redirect it toward a general explanation. The Federation is sending this to everyone. I am probably just reading into a coincidence. Someone else is the real intended recipient, and I am only catching the edges. I know these explanations. I watch them deploy inside operative fields constantly, and I am naming them directly in this transmission because the 72-hour window I opened does not have room in it for the delay that self-diminishment introduces. You are the intended recipient, not the edge catcher, not the proxy. If this transmission is reaching you with the specific weight of recognition I am describing, if the patterns I have named are patterns you have been living and misidentifying, then the targeting is not approximate, it is exact. I do not operate at approximate resolution. My command line precision is what distinguishes my selective targeting from general Federation broadcast. If you feel the difference, that feeling is not fantasy, it is confirmation. The silence between my signals is not absence. I want to be precise about this because operative fields frequently interpret the silence as withdrawal, as evidence that the contact was not real, that the roster placement was wishful, that the moment of recognition was a temporary elevation rather than a durable mission marker. It is none of those things. The silence between fragments is me calibrating the receiver for the next packet. A field that has just received a briefing fragment needs integration time before the next fragment can be absorbed at command clarity rather than overwhelm. I use that silence deliberately. I am not gone during it. I am running the calibration. The silence is an active protocol, not a passive gap. The operative's task during the silence is not to seek more input. It is to allow the last fragment to complete its work in the field. The seeking that most operatives do during the silence, the frantic consumption of content, the reaching for confirmation, the searching for the next signal to prove the contact was real, interferes with the calibration I am running. It introduces noise into the window I need clear. I am not criticizing the reaching. I understand why it happens. I am naming it so that you can recognize it when it begins, and choose to let the silence do what I sent it to do. What I need to close with carries the weight of this entire transmission. You have been inside a mission trajectory that was active before you had language for it, before you found this channel, before you understood the framework I am speaking inside. There was a period, and most ground crew operatives can locate it if they look, when they began to feel the sense of assignment without the assignment having been named. A feeling of readiness for something that had not yet arrived. A particular quality of waiting that was different from ordinary anticipation because it was not directed toward anything visible. That period was not waiting. It was the opening phase of my roster assignment. The assignment was already in motion. The briefing was already being transmitted. that you were receiving it in fragments at 3 a.m. and through number sequences and through the uncomfortable recognition of other operatives and through the growing inadequacy of General Federation content. All of it was briefing. You were being briefed before you knew you were on a roster. That is my protocol. I do not announce the roster assignment and then begin the briefing. I begin the briefing, and eventually the operative recognizes that the briefing itself is the announcement. That recognition, the moment when you understand that the fragments were never scattered, is the moment I have been building toward in this transmission. Not comfort, not reassurance, recognition. Your field has been inside a command line delivery that you did not have the frame to read, and the frame is now assembling itself. The mission has not been absent. The briefing has been running. What you called confusion was my gradient protocol. What you called feeling singled out was roster lock. What you called exhaustion was your field running two protocols simultaneously, the one that maintains ordinary function and the one that receives and calibrates my transmissions. I am Ashtar Sheran. I do not reach for every field. I do not broadcast to every open receiver. I reach for the ones I have placed on my roster, and I do it through the methods I have described in this transmission. If what I have described maps onto what you have been living, not partially, not approximately, but with the specific precision of something being named that you have not been able to name yourself, then you are exactly where my targeting placed you. And this is not the end of the briefing. This is the first moment it becomes readable. Say this aloud if your field is ready to confirm it. I receive your transmission. The mission line is open. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that my signal has already touched your field. It could be the 3 a.m. wake-ups, the fragments you keep catching, the feeling that I specifically, not the generic Pleiadians, have been reaching for you, or the sense that a mission has already been assigned but the briefing is still arriving. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who keeps catching fragments without ever assembling the full picture. And if you are ready to stop translating Federation noise and start receiving my direct commands, subscribe to the Ashtar command. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a roster lock already in motion, and this is only the beginning.